Welcome to Shadows of Dawn.
And welcome, guys, to Shadows of Dawn. This is a dungeon build, and today we're going to be building the first dungeon that I'm actually recording for Group 2, since I didn't record their very first dungeon because it was so similar to Group A's dungeon. But this one's different, so if you're watching the stream, you know that Group B decided to go off towards the Southern Plateaus for the mission Dig a Little Deeper for the Collective. So this is very much a dungeon crawl, and this one's going to have some traps, and this one kind of has a little bit more of a, and when I think about this one, it's more of a kind of an Egyptian style. It's like, let's go into the dungeon and see what they did. So some of the excavators had basically been killed by a trap, and so they've hired the adventurers to come and kind of help save them. So anyway, that's just kind of a premise of this dungeon. It's called Dig a Little Deeper. The players won't see this until after they've run through it, so I'm just recording right now, but I will post it live. So look for it very soon. Not that you know that, but I'm just saying that right here. So let's go ahead and look at the map, and let's just kind of see what we're dealing with. So the map's pretty simple. I just kind of drew basic square rooms for this, and it's got some very loose and wild corridors, which, you know, when you do these automatic generated maps, you're going to get some strange stuff sometimes. And like I've said before, it's like this is just kind of a guide. You know, we make this map, we make it really quick. We don't spend a whole lot of time on it because we're going to actually build it. And that's what's key. So this is basically how it is. 7 rooms, got the little red areas. We have some traps. We have some locked doors. Just some things for them to deal with. So let's head over to the table and start building. So since this is underground, I kind of have the stairs already set up. And get my screen there so I can see what I'm doing. Hi, everybody. So I have some stairs. I want that stairs to kind of be this first little corridor. And as I'm looking at my map, the first thing I kind of realize is I have everything backwards. So whenever I work, I always flip my map in the direction of which I'm building. That way, even if the numbers are upside down, I can figure that out later. That's not a problem. So this is just kind of our first little entrance. And what I want this to do, I want them to have to come down the stairs. And one of the things is with minis, they don't sit on these stairs very well. So I'm going to go ahead and just give them a little entry corridor, which is maybe, I don't know, two squares, if that. And what I can do, instead of trying to make it super wide like this, where I have these kind of gaps, you can kind of deal with that by putting some walls. But if you're using a mat, let's say if you're using a mat, kind of like these mats by Mars, if you're using a mat, you can just kind of use the mat to your benefit, right? Let's just use the mat to basically be some of our corridor area. So we're just going to flip the walls like this. And then that way, it's just, they're actually walking on the mat. I mean, heck, you bought the mat for something, right? So we're going to do that, and then we're just going to put the door right in there. So that the mat is basically part of the dungeon, and we're just kind of using the walls for aesthetic. Nothing wrong with that at all. Kind of gives a nice look to the whole thing, if you will. So, and then we just kind of start in on our first room, right? So our first room, kind of a square room. It's going to come off in this direction. We do a count, 10, 20, 35. So if you're watching my last build, one of the things that you run across every once in a while is these automatic generators build in fives quite often. And so you basically have to compensate. I'm just going to flip my door around there so it fits. You kind of have to compensate by just since Dwarven Forge doesn't really make things in fives, and actually Dwarven Forge actually makes these slimmer doors. This is one of the reasons you use these little slimmer doors is when you're using two wall pieces and you kind of have to put them at a weird angle. These little slimmer doors fit right in there just perfect. You have the wider doors and the slimmer doors. But when you're making things by fives, Dwarven Forge pieces obviously come in tens. So you're just going to have to round it off. So instead of making this one 35, we'll just make it 30. So we'll go 10, 20. And we notice we have a door on this end. So we're going to flip and use that. And we will use, once again, the smaller door. Just set that guy in there, 20, 30. And it comes off the other direction. See, it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So it's actually 50 long. So we got the corners, 10, 20, 30. And get some walls over here. Another wall. And then one of the famous Dwarven Forge corner pieces. We have another door over here, so I have to keep an eye out for that door over there. 20, but it's not on the corner. So door's kind of like one shade over. So we'll just put a flat piece there. And what we can do is we can kind of fill in the flat area there. And continue to use our wall pieces to just finish up the room. There we go. And door. Set that door in there. Fit nicely. We have a mirrored room right past the door. So if you're looking at the map, you kind of notice this mirrored room has a little hallway. We can do that if we want to. And let's do it for this one. We'll make this a little narrow corridor. So we'll just use, this is a narrow passage set. So the narrow passage set takes up a 10-foot square, so you're still kind of working in tens, but it blends the squares to make it one, right? So only, they have to march single file. I find it gives the PCs anxiety when they put them into single file. They don't necessarily like it because, now they're like, uh-oh, we're in lightning bolt formation or something. It's a little funny, but it's a good way to just kind of break it up. It doesn't have to, everything you do doesn't necessarily have to mean anything, because if it always did, then they'd always be on their toes, they'd always be ready, and you don't want that to happen. So this one's 10, 20, 30, this one's 35 feet, and since we made the other one 35 feet shorter, we'll make this one 40. We'll just make it 5 feet wider. Not for any particular reason, sometimes it's just to mess with them. In fact, I believe this room doesn't have too much in it, actually, if I remember correctly. And sometimes DMs would be like, well, it doesn't have much in it, so shortchange it. I wouldn't. Sometimes it's some of those red herrings that really make the PCs think. It's like, I think we missed something. And yes, they may spend a little extra time messing with the room, but sometimes it's funny. Because if they do it here, if the players kind of mess here and then figure out it's kind of a red herring or they got nothing out of it. When they get to the next room, where something is actually there, they might take it a little too lightly, and then of course the trap springs or something happens like that. So sometimes, shortchanging yourself is not a great idea. All right, so we kind of have those two large rooms right there. And you can kind of see the map. This room's 1 and 2 coming off the entrance. So now we kind of have the corridor action. Right? So we can do this a couple of ways. We can give them the paranoia of the single corridor, which might be fun. So, this one, it goes up 10 feet. Looks like we have a corner at 20. See if you can see that. And not quite. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. Get the camera there. Maybe back here. There you go. You can see that camera coming up. Notice we're building this hallway that runs down here. And this hallway is going to run to a T-section. So let's go there. And hey, we have a T-section. It's nice. And we can break the hallway there, and we can make it continue to go. Now the hallway has to wrap around our second room, so we have to have a little length on it. So let's make sure we got that taken care of. And I can kind of see we're going to run out of narrow corridors kind of quick. So in this case, it might be a better idea to go ahead and make this room red herring. But you know what? We're going to go for it. We're going to see what happens. We may end up having to slide the whole dungeon, which is something you can do. Just you have to deal with it sometimes. Kind of depends on how long we get this way. I think we're going to shorten this corridor back here a bit so we don't have so much. And then we have a wraparound on that end as well. So let's go ahead and build that direction. So we know our room 4 here is 10, 20, 30, 45 feet. So we're going to shorten that to 40. So sometimes what I like to do is I like to kind of just position a room. Go ahead and get it positioned so that I kind of know where my target is. At least one wall, right? So that's 10, 20, 30, so that's 40. Looks a lot bigger when I'm looking at the map than maybe it really is. And let's see, well, it'll have a door kind of in the middle. So what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at this room 4. And I'm trying to build it out. And if we go 10, 20, 30, 40, but see, you're automatically starting to now see it's like, well, this one really has to be over, right? So that door has to be outside of this wall. So some of the things that you're starting to see that can be a problem, right? So what we can do is we can just run this corridor right along the outside wall of this big room that we built here. And then what we want to do is we want to make sure that the door is at least to the outside of that. And another thing we can do is you start positioning these things, things become clear, right? So if you want this corridor to run a little closer, we're just going to switch these pieces here. There we go. So again, we're not getting hung up in the minutia of the map. We want everything to work for us, right? And so now this hallway is going to run, let's see. I'm going to run out of these little narrow corridor pieces, I believe. Let me see how many I have left. In my box, it's way over here off camera. Let's see. Only one. I have some dead ends and 4 ways. And some narrow passage, some wideners. So I'm not ending up with many of these left, right? So I know I'm going to run into a problem. And that's okay. We can fix things, right? So instead of making our thing come all the way around the side, we'll just make it come into the side, which is perfectly acceptable. So we're going to burn our narrow corridors here, and we are going to drop in a turn right there. And then we kind of have these cool pieces, right? So it takes 1 and molds it into 2. So we will drop that there. And you can now kind of see how the 1 becomes a 2. And so this is where it looks like we have a secret door. There is an S on our map. And yep, that's a secret door. So what we'll actually do is I do have a nice little secret door wall. If I can remember what I did with it. But we will keep the secret door wall super handy. Oh, you know what? I probably stuck it inside the, probably stuck inside one of my drawers, so that we can replace it. Or you just kind of keep an extra chip, so So if they find the secret door, then you just replace it with a floor, which makes that super easy. So sometimes I like to take those and just set them near. You know, if the players are like, "What's this?" When you reveal it, you're like, "Oh, I must have forgot one." They don't really know. Smart players will start to clue in, but that's okay. So we'll finish off the rest of our 40 by 40 room here. Y'all see that? Yeah, you can see that. So it's kind of like aiming, right? All these, it's like you got to kind of aim down the barrel in order to hit your room on target. You know, it's dungeon building isn't. It's not exactly a science, but I would call it somewhat of an art. It does take some talent, some planning, especially when you're dealing with the terrain, which doesn't always match the maps. Okay, so now you can attack this one of two ways. As I'm kind of looking at my map again, I'm kind of seeing how I have this room 6 that's kind of stuck between these two rooms. And I'm kind of wondering how far I need to make this corridor, right? So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to start from room 4 and build room 6 out. So that room 6 will kind of tell me what the distance is that I need to actually make for the corridor that comes down the other side. Now I'm actually just kind of lining these things up with the floor. Using the mat as an aid, as a guide, more or less, to help me set things square. So I'm just going to put room 6 right next to that room. And since I have an adjacent wall, I'm just going to use a flat piece here. So you can see that. Let me move this around over here. See a little different angle from me building on this. There we go. Right. So instead of using a wall, which would create kind of a double wall here, I don't want to kind of create this thickness. So I'm just going to use a flat piece. Right. And if I look at room 6 is 10, 20, 30, 45 feet. So we'll make room 6 40 feet. So line these up. And I have a door straight in the corner of room 6. So once again, we're going to be using this, and we'll be using one of the specialized small doors. There we go. And room 6 is square. So 10, 20, 30, 40. And so room 6 and this room have to come into the same wall size. So I really only need 10 feet here. That's good. That makes it super helpful. And it also will require a small door. But let's say you didn't have a small door. No big deal. It's like it's showing that these doors should be super close. We can just move that door over, and it doesn't affect much anyway. Also, if you can kind of see this, move this camera in here. This narrow corridor here is kind of starting to get into this area. Well, since I don't have any more narrow corridor pieces, what I can do is I'm going to go ahead and just use this small to wide piece. Nope, I can't use that. So what I will do is I'll just use this here, and since it butts flush up against this back wall, perfectly acceptable. And now I just kind of have these thick walls next to each other. It's like, yep, that will be a door. Or the other thing you could do, since it's wall to wall, I could just throw a square in there and say, you know what, it just widens right there. And this is even easier. And then I just put in the door where I want it to be. So, let's see. Yeah, you saw me do that. So it probably looks better from this direction. Move that there. And yeah, so I just put in this little piece right here. Kind of come off of that, because this door is going to come into a new room. And that new room is number 3. It's this room right here. You can see how those walls are right next to each other. And number 3 is about 40 feet long. Actually, it's probably 45. And once again, I'm going to borrow the wall of the room adjacent to it. Right, so once again, I'm kind of borrowing this wall to double use of the same wall. 30, 40. Actually, 10, 20, 30. I can use a corner piece, or I can use one of the L shapes, right, since I'm borrowing this wall. Keeps that wall from being double thick. Let me just put that there. So this is in here. Let's go ahead and fill this room out and close this room up. And I need the door and the wall. Kind of closes that room up. And that is an archway. So there is no door right there. It's a trapped archway, actually. Let's see if they figure that out. 10, 20, 30. And once again, we'll use an L here instead of a corner piece to keep the walls thin. The only corner piece will be out here. The floor's here. Two right there. Close that up. And we need one over here and one here. Just turn this just a little bit. Because now we're going to be building on this side. And what that is that's this room 5. Right? So we have a room 5 with a door. So we will use our door piece right there. And we will build room 5 just right on the end. So even room 5 is supposed to be kind of over a bit, but because we had to shorten some things, we're just going to make room 5 the same width. We'll just keep it perpendicular as with the room that we just built. Once again, stressing not sweating the small stuff, because unless they actually look at the map, they don't really know. And even if the players were given a map, you know, the map doesn't always have to be identical to what they find. You know, many maps, even in history, were not quite identical to what actually was there. Of course, I'm questioning, it's like exactly how many real maps were really out there that really led to something. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot, but I highly doubt they were all pixel perfect, shall we say. So yeah, so kind of scan over that, and look at that, we've kind of come a long way, right? So that was a long way very fast. So room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4, room 5, way down here, and room 6. We really only have one more room. The other thing you'll notice is just kind of by looking around at the entire table, I've kind of positioned this in the center of the table. I kind of want, you know, obviously I'll have some things over here or nothing over there, but I really want the whole table to kind of have at least some kind of, you know, closeness to the action, or as many players as possible. So whenever you start doing this, you know, try to plan out so that, you know, the action will, you know, cover everybody in the table. You want all your players to be involved, because you don't want to leave anybody out. All right, so this is a long corridor. So a couple of ways to handle the long corridor. Let me break out. Let's see, I'm going to need a couple of, I have corner pieces out the wazoo. I'm probably going to need a lot of wall pieces since I'm going to have to kind of build a wider corridor, which you can. Just build a wide corridor like that. It's 10 foot wide. And you just kind of tell them, oh, it widens here. Magical. Maybe this is the home stretch. It is, and we wouldn't be leading them entirely astray by saying it is indeed the home stretch. But see, this one does like this super windy thing. And it's like one of the settings I have on the builder is for stray hallways. And I like to see what it does, even though many times it's impractical, just from a pure setup standpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have it do an L and then basically come into the hallway, and I'll take the trap and just kind of move it in the center there. In fact, what I might do, let's go ahead and keep it wide. By keeping it wide, I don't create a choke point. And once again, if you create a choke point, your players get antsy. They start to think, oh, there's a trap, which there is, but let's not tell them that. Let's not give it completely away. There we go. And we'll start thinking about our room here. So our room, 10, 20, 30, 40, probably by 50, 40 by 50. So if you want a square room, it's 10, 20, you're gonna have to put a wall in it somewhere, right? So there's a couple of ways we can do this. I didn't have this in the scheme, but you know what? Sometimes you just pivot where you can have, let's have a double door. Double doors are 4 wide, 4 by 2, so they fit in these wide hallways. So now it's really going to give them anxiety. And it's a little off center of the room, but that's okay. You know what? Egyptian builders, right? I hope that's not offensive to anybody. I always thought it was a funny joke. They did build the pyramid, so it's kind of a compliment, if you will. If not, I don't know better. Do the 5th. But there we go. I think they ought to take it as a compliment. Unless you believe the aliens built the pyramids, and then you probably really don't care. And that's okay. That's okay. So this room actually ended up a little bit bigger than I thought. Well, now, you know what? Shave that off. It was 40 by 50. We're not perfect. Never claimed to be. 20, 30, 40, 2 corners. And that should round this guy off. 50. Just put in the back walls. And we're done. Nice. Came out pretty clean. That really didn't take very long at all for the basics, right? So now comes the fun part. It's like I always like the fun part. Fun part's kind of the decor, the ambiance of setting these things in place. Alrighty. So let's take a look at our work. All in all, so if we were looking at our entrance, and we're looking at the entrance, we were using the mat. Another thing you can do is you can just go ahead and use flat tiles there as well. So we just take these flat tiles and just drop them on the ground. Players don't get confused. It makes everything level. So, if you have the pieces, do it. If you don't have the pieces, that's why you have the mat. Plus, I think the mat just adds coolness, especially to the background. And for a builder, the mat helps kind of keep things straight, right? So if we're looking at the map, we got room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Everything's there. Kind of see the map. Not too bad. Not too bad. Cool. So now we'll set the map aside. And so like this entire dungeon, this entire module, when I wrote it, 4 pieces of paper. That's very simple. You don't have to go, it's like I've seen DMs where it's like a book. It's like, honestly, I don't know how much you do, how you do that. I even have the italic text to read to the player, so I even have that written in there. And I just really copy and paste the trap rules out of the DMG. Like if I'm copying a trap, it's really literally just copy and paste. Just so that I don't have to go digging for it. It's just right here on this paper. So a lot of what I have here is, you know, this one has actually quite a bit of traps, quite a few traps for most modules. So it has 4, I think. And for a short module, since it is like a tomb, I want it to have that trap dangerous feel. But yeah, that's it. Doesn't take very much. So, well, let's start going through this, right? After descending the ladder down about 20 feet, yeah, it's a little farther. I will change that to stairs. We'll make it instead of ladder. I like stairs since I like the look. When I wrote it, I was thinking ladder, but here, it's like, I like stairs. Narrow corridor, which we have. Slants downward about 50 feet, comes to a door with torchlight coming from within. In fact, this door, I'm just going to open this door already because there's some workers that are already working in, right? So we have a door, but I want to make it open. So we're going to open that one. Let's see. Inside, I have 3 people. A couple of laborers and head honcho. So I just go over here to my handy dandy minis that I have stuck way over here, probably off camera, and that's okay. Just have my NPCs, right? So I'll get my NPCs in the room, just kind of like they're working and doing stuff. And this has torches, right? So we have some torch light. So I have these little old Dwarven Forge torches. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. I think Dwarven Forge, it was a great idea, but see, that one glows. Glows just a little bit. I think it was a great idea, but yeah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And they're super sensitive as far as like sometimes you can get them to flicker because just where it's contacting is right. And I guess you could take the thing apart and just really rework the contacts. But yeah, I don't want to. So that's okay. So we're going to add some barrels. So these guys are digging and they're excavating. So they're doing some storing. So we have some loose barrels and stuff in here. Boxes, crates that they're collecting stuff in because these guys are working on the area. Let's see. And that's room 1. So room 2, let's go ahead and just do room 2 before we kind of come around the corner. Room 2 is decorated like a fountain room. There are pillars surrounding a pedestal upon which is a marble statue of a 5-headed dragon. Ooh, that'll be good. The pillars here are decayed over time, and the room looks like it should contain water, but there are no signs that the fountain ever worked. Must be for look or only perhaps meditation. Okay. So I do have a fountain that I could put in there, but it doesn't have a 5-headed dragon. So that's suspect. Now I do have a Hydra. And let me see, I think my Hydra's way across the room, so bear with me while I walk all the way over here to see if it's here. No, but you know what's going to scare the crap out of them? I could put the aspect of Tiamat in there. That would be awesome. In fact, why don't we do that? Since technically, if you followed the first age, if anybody followed the first age, this area is close to the Plateau of Sorrow where they fought the aspect of Tiamat. So in order to make pillars in a raised dais, I do have some pillars. I have large pillars, which I'll probably need to use for this, since this is such a large mini. And for kind of like a pedestal, I will just use flat terrain. Just want to elevate it. So I'm just going to put the flat terrain kind of here in the middle. And let's see. It says there are pillows also surrounding the pedestal. I'll just have to describe that, unless I just want to cut out little pillows. Actually, I have something that can work. I'll pull that out in a second. Statue of a five-headed dragon. Boom. Massive statue. Put some pillars in here. I'll put one on this side. I don't need 4. I need 2. Actually, I can use 4. Let's do 4. Let's just put them in the corners. Make it semi-majestic. So there's not a lot of room to move around. There we go. Just kind of making that one semi-majestic. All right, so pillows. Interestingly enough, you can find these in various either hobby stores or, oh my gosh, hardware stores perhaps, glass shops. These are just little glass chips, little squares. They're like less than an inch. And I can use them as markers. And so what I like to do sometimes is just use them as pillows. I've used them as pillows, cushions, things like that. And I'm just going to spread them loosely around the room. Because if this was like a meditation room or something, then they would just be, maybe 3 on each side. Some blue pillows, 3 on each side. Just loosely around the room. That ought to scare the crap out of them. That ought to be nice. Can't wait for that reveal. Five-headed dragon. Awesome. Let's see now. Now that the players have the crap thoroughly scared out of them. Let's go to our hallway split, right? So this is a trap that we have over here where the hallway splits, right? So this is why the party was called out to help. So what I need, if you have skeletons, you can use skeletons. But if you go on eBay, or eBay is a good source. You can find these little dead corpse tokens, and they're colored. And I love to use these little dead corpse tokens. So for the trap here, I want to indicate a trap. I'm just going to put a dead corpse token kind of right in the middle. The hallway splits here with one corridor going south. The hall continues west. On the floor lies an excavator who appears to have died a bloody death, as if cut by many blades. An arm lies near the body, detached. The smell is deathly, and he's been dead for more than a week. And that's where they stopped and went to get adventurers for help. Perfect. All I need is a body. Keep a couple other bodies here just in case I need them. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Room 1 and room 2. Let's see. I can go to room 3. Room 3 is this room that's way over here. It's behind the five-headed dragon. Room 3 is way back here. Actually, no. I had a brief idea, but the pedestal there is not supposed to be magical. And I don't want it to be, because then that would indicate something that I don't want to happen. So this one, 8 statues line this room with what appear to be some sort of priest-like robes. The walls are muraled with scenes of rituals and the summoning of a five-headed dragon. So these are murals. Shadowy figures. There's a shadowy figure, which is indiscernible, who holds aloft a scepter and appears like a dragon. So I'm describing the mural. The robed man is decorated with treasure, but at some point he dies and is buried with what looks like the tooth of a dragon. This is actually a hint of what's going to happen in one of the later rooms. So room 3. Let's see. I have a trap in room 3, which is here. It's in the archway. This is a pressure plate trap. So there's really nothing to put there. Let's see. But that's it for this room. There are just statues. 8 statues, to be exact, that line this room. So a couple of ways to do statues. I do have some minis that duplicate his statues. These are old, like, I don't know, I want to say they're from like Hero Quest or something. I've used these a lot for statues since they're just kind of stone gray. And I could use these. I could use a couple of them. There's 5 at least, right? So I could use 5. Don't think I have any more. But at the lack of others, let's see. So I have these statues. And this is good because what I'm going to do in this room is only one of the statues comes to life, right? So I pulled that mini aside earlier to set it over here. And that statue, of course, looks just like 3 of the others, right? So 3 and 5 is 8. So I can just kind of decorate these rooms, this room, with these statues. And then at the proper moment, the 1 comes to life. Put those in the corners, set that there. And the statues don't necessarily have a rhyme or reason. Let's not put the trigger statue right next to the door. We'll put it second from the door. We'll put those there. And we'll put these other 2 across from the first 2. And we'll put these next to the door, next to the archway. There we go. A little creepy. Perfect. So just kind of have the statues kind of scattered around the room. And this will be our stone cursed statue. That's the one that comes to life. So not all of them, but of course they'll probably end up smashing all of them. But see, that'll have an impact because the excavators are trying to preserve treasure, right? So if they go and destroy things that aren't coming to life, you know, the collective's not going to be too happy. Awesome. Okay, so that was 3A, and let's see. So let's go all the way down and do room 4. But see, room 4 has a trap in the middle. The trap in the middle. Let's see if there's anything we need to do to trigger it from a build perspective. Deuce present. Nope, it's pressure plate. So they're just going to have to check going down that hallway to see if they have a pressure plate. Just have to remember that as we're watching them on the map. That one does end in a dead end. So that's one of the ones where they will have to find a secret door. It's pretty much there. We're kind of giving it to them. It is not a major secret, lest they would have found it very readily. But because it's not a major secret, we don't really have to worry about super hiding it or anything like that. Wish I could remember what I did with my secret door. Alas, it is somewhere. I will find it. I always find it. So room 4 has vases that line the walls of this room. The room contains what was grain, oats, as well as casks of beer or wine. Awesome. So this room has a swarm of centipedes in it, which is going to be amongst the treasure. So they had, this is one I love to use. This is kind of it was a treasure set that Dwarven Forge came out with, right? Has very nice Egyptian style decor, especially these little, like Anubis vases. And I forget what the owl god is, but I have these little owl things. And I can set these around the room. Put a bunch of them kind of in a corner. Move the camera over so you can see that. So I'm just setting these guys, decorating. I will put a cask in here as well. I do have a big cask. I have a giant size cask somewhere. Let's see. There he is. Found him. A ginormous cask. So these are all the goodies that were left. And I'm just going to put them all in there right now. If I need one in another room, then I'll just steal it. But then I will line. I'm going to do this opposite kind of corner. Some vases. Just set up the room. Kind of hard to see. I got them really narrow in this area. Kind of against this wall as well. I wanted to make it so it's fragile, right? They can't just come trampsing through here lest something gets broken. Let's put some crates. Let's put a few barrels. Some barrels against this wall. There we go. Another barrel over here. Just kind of decorate this one up. Our little vases fell down. Cat statue, perfect. Put that in there. Yeah, awesome. So that's what we'll do with that. I'll set this aside and we'll end up using that in another room. That would be great. So, yeah, that's room 4. They will find, if they search, there is a nice bottle of wine. There is also some foliage in here as well. So we can give a little hint for that. We go to the cave set came with these really tiny, I'll show you how they can, really tiny plant. So I'm just gonna take this plant, I'm gonna stick it in the corner. And that's kind of a hint. If they go and, what's this? Then they can inspect it and see if it's part of life fruit, which can be used to make a potion of healing. Awesome. Okay. Room 5. It jumps way over here by me. What's that for that room? Room 5 right here. Let's back this up. Alright. If you're looking at our map, it's room 5 down here. We already have the statues next to it. So I have a locked door here. I have it on my map marked in red. Room 5 is carved with murals. It shows a priest extracting a tooth from a deceased dragon. The dragon then flies away. Well, I should probably change that from non-deceased dragon, or what looked to be a deceased dragon, or just say a dragon. So one of the reasons you always read this thing twice, so you don't accidentally, what you wrote sometimes sounds really good until you reread it. Happens all the time, right? So we're just going to cross out the word deceased. Because I probably had an idea and then got to the second line and was like, you know what? Let's make it fly away. So now it's just from a dragon. The dragon flies away. The priest uses the tooth, some sort of instrument. The scene shows a woman being sacrificed. This was all part of the first stage, the very climactic, I want to say, adventure of the first stage. Let's see. So let's get to the room. A chest sits across the room on a small pedestal. Otherwise, the room is bare except for invasive plant life along the edges of the room. Awesome. So of course, this is going to be absolutely great because they are going to think, in their heart of hearts, they got a mimic. Especially if they watched the last episode where it was a mimic. So we'll put some invasive plants. And again, to make a raised base, you really just kind of use another floor piece to bump it up. So we just use a floor piece, bump it up. And let's use a cool chest. So I have a box of chests. What's in the chest? Yeah, this is actually kind of cool. This is a chest of preserving. It's a common magic item. So we're going to make it different. Well, let's not make it too different. Here we go. I like this one. This is a nice little wooden chest. Came from one of the Dwarven Forges. Just a nice chest. Let's put some more invasive plant life in this room, shall we? Since it's invasive. Because they're going to think the plants are all cray-cray. But actually in this room there's a vampiric mist. So it'll be a vampiric mist that's the problem. can't really see it until, they walk across the room and decides to attack. So, a little bit of a red herring with the plant life. That's awesome. A little misdirection. Egyptian builders. Sneaky guys. Sneaky, sneaky. Let's move on to room 6. All right. Okay, so this one will be a challenge, right? So here we go. Room 6. It's a big open room right here. 6 mirrors in this room are spread about. 3 in one wall, 3 in the opposite wall. Directly opposite of each other. Looking in a mirror shows a narrow dark corridor about 20 feet long. In the middle of the corridor appears to be an object seemingly floating in the air. I'm not going to give this one away right here. You can watch the stream and see how this one plays out, but basically they have to go into a mirror, and it's kind of dimensional. They come out the opposite mirror on the other side. So how do you get mirrors in here? Well, I'm going to show you. So you remember those little glass pieces I used for pillows? Well, now I'm going to use them for mirrors. And a cool trick that I learned, and if you watched the last stream, I did this with Treasure. Sticky tack. This little sticky tack. Little globs of white. Just sticky tack. And you just take that little sticky tack and you can stick it right to a wall section. And it just hangs there. Perfect. Love it. Been using this stuff to keep stuff in place. And it comes off, which is the second best part, right? It comes right off whenever you need it to come off. So, let's put one wall. Come here. Sometimes you just got to take it off and force it in there yourself. 2 wall. And a sticky tack to get the 3rd. There we go. 3 mirrors on that wall. And now I just need 3 mirrors on the opposite wall. This will be fun. This is a fun room for the DM. We'll see how fun it is for the players. But I will say this: if they do, and you know what, I know my players, they will figure it out, and they will motor through this because what they kind of see is worth it, right? They're only 2nd level, but there's some good treasures here. They can get them good amount of cash as well as some renown. As well as a flower, an herb. And I know one of them is an herbalist that the herb can be used for a potion, and may not be something that comes in immediately useful, but they don't need it right away, so they have time. So there we go. I'll pull this over so you can see. So I have 3 mirrors and opposite 3 mirrors. So I just kind of created the mirror room. That's awesome. That's awesome. DMs, if you do something awesome, you can say it's awesome. I see a lot of you guys do some pretty awesome stuff out there, by the way. So yeah, those are definitely awesome. So, trap. Yes. So I have a trap over here in this hallway, and this one's great because this one is another pressure plate. So the builders kind of had a theme, a lot of pressure plates. But this one, of course, opens a little ceiling area, and it drops a gelatinous cube on them. So, gotta love gelatinous cubes. And if somebody's standing under it, well, we all know what happens. So, that'll be fun. But let's get to room 7. Room 7 is the main room. So let's just kind of move this over here so you can see room 7 as I work on it. All right, room 7, this is our boss fight. This is our mummy room. The room here is nicely decorated with a stone coffin in the middle. Excellent. Well, I just happen to have and I picked this up. I don't remember where I picked it up. I think it was an eBay, but it's just somebody molded this themselves and painted and sold them. It's a coffin, and you can just stick it, use it as a raised dais, and as a coffin. Works perfect. I do have some other coffins that are, you know, I don't want to diss anybody's coffin, but this one is cooler. And so by all means, you know, go with what you need. So I bought these mainly because I could get a bunch of them for pretty cheap. And so if I needed a lot of coffins in the room, then I bought these. But Door and Forge did have a piece that came out like that, right? And it's even openable. So the lid even opens and there's a skeleton. So I can just set that guy right on top. Definitely cooler. But don't discount these guys. These guys, you can find them super cheap. I think maybe not eBay. It might have been an Etsy. I might have found this on Etsy. Because they mold them out of, I don't know, pottery clay or something, or ceramic. It's whatever it is. I mean, it's cheap, but it's painted. But you know what? It's going to take a beating, so you don't really care. You can always just kind of repaint it if you need to. So cool. We have stone coffins surrounding the room, writings in draconic murals which depict a priest. We kind of have some history there. Let's see, what else? Around the room are various vats and boxes as well as objects of indiscernible value. Cool. So now we can really go to town, right? So what's cool is I have this mummy thing, right? So I'm going to put the mummy thing, I'm going to put it over here in this corner. So they're probably thinking the mummy might come out of the tomb, but I'll actually maybe have it come out of the statue there. And we'll put this chair over here in this corner, and we'll put this little golden bed over here. We'll take some copper coins and throw it over there. Let's see, we'll have some writings, this little pile of scrolls, if you can see that. Little pile of scrolls. We'll just put them here on the edge of the thing. Like that. Let's see, what else? Sometimes I like to look at our treasure value in a room. So this treasure value in a room, this one actually has, this has a magic item in it. And inside, let's see, we will go ahead and put, let's put this little horn. It's got a styrofoam ball stuck to it. There we go. Just a tiny little horn. We're just going to put it inside. That way if they do open it up, there's something in there for them to look at and be like, oh, I found it. Let's see. We have a painting in the room. We're just kind of, we can symbolize that also with a colored tile. Another way to do that is once again, with sticky tack, and you stick it on the wall. It's like these little glass tiles, and you can get these little glass tiles in all sorts of colors. Great. You know, one thing, maybe I'll see if I can find like little miniature paintings or something. That would be cool. Sometimes these things are a little porous, and if they're porous, sticky tack takes a little work to get it to stick. So let's really mash that in there. Nice thing with Dwarvenite, you can kind of abuse it. Because it's meant to stay. There we go. Painting on the wall. Perfect. It's an abstract. Let's see, just another box looking thing. We're just going to put that in there. I have lots of copper. So we're going to use this big pile of treasure. Let's put it in the middle of the room. That way they're not just creeping in. Let's go ahead and have some skulls. We're going to add some barrels. Some barrels, an empty one, maybe some grain, some boxes, more barrels. Get another box. There's some art objects that are around the room. Let's see. It says many are filled with foodstuffs. That's good. Foodstuffs. Awesome. So now we have our mummy room. this final fight. Cool. Alrighty. So I didn't do this in the last group, so I'm going to show you guys. This one's a little different in where it is. So one of the things I like to do, sometimes just for table ambience, I'd like to add a little decor around the table, and I'll show you what I mean. So for example, in this case, the adventurers are trekking into cracks before they get to kind of a sand plateau. So a little different environment than what they typically deal with. So what I want to do is I want to give them, just some table ambience. Let me put all this stuff out of the way that I'll get rid of. And so I have these pieces, which, to them, they may read into them, they may not. Let me show you. It's really just like aquarium terrain. And all I'm really going to do is I'm just setting it on the table. I'm just going to put it here. I want this to basically give ambiance to whatever's happening. Put one just right there. Put another one just on the table. So the whole setup just has a little more environment to it. Because the crags in my world, in this world, they're rocky. So they don't necessarily have ferns growing on them, but you know what? Doesn't matter. They could. And that's all that matters. So if we kind of pan it back, we're really just kind of giving the room just a little extra ambiance to add to it. And then the last thing we really need to do is, well, first, let's get some of these boxes and barrels out of the way so that they are in their proper place. It's like I have a nice little box for boxes, bones, and since I have a ton of barrels, I have a box for barrels. Just helps you when you need to find them. And then this is all furniture from the last session that I tore down, and so I actually have a box of furniture, which is obviously purely for furnishing. In that case, it was for a flood. And so all the furnishings have been caught in a flood, and they've basically been all flushed to all corners of the room. It was just bric-a-brac. It's not like difficult terrain, just scattered all over the place. So what I want to show you now is basically how to fog of war this. I've done this before. I didn't do it in the last video, but I want to show you on this one kind of how to fog of war. So I use just sheets or torn pillowcases or cut pillowcases. Very simple. Blue, black, something opaque. The key with doing your fog of war is to start back to front, because it makes uncovering so much easier. And in only covering things you really need to cover, maybe in one or two segments, right? So if I start back to front, then I want to cover this area back here. This is the very last room, so it should be the last thing uncovered. And I'm going to cover it this way, right? So by the time they get to this, then I only have to peel this back. So that's kind of the whole concept. And let's see if I can get that on camera a little better for you. I'll raise the camera up just a tad. There we go. So if I'm covering this whole thing, I want to cover it this way, so that when they get to here, then I'm just having to pull this back. It makes it easier to reveal. And I can cover the whole thing there. Maybe even let them peek at it. Like, hey, there's something there. What's going on? And if you got it, let the mystery kind of be the mystery itself, right? So here in the middle, I kind of have three sections, right? But they happen in one of two ways. So I'm going to split this, because they could come this way first and then go that way, or they could come all the way down this direction. So I don't know. So when you don't know, you want to divvy it up. So in this event, I'm just going to cover these last two rooms here. So I'm gonna cover the back first, because this one's kind of risky because you don't know exactly which direction they're going to come from. And I always like try to put the heavier ends towards the outside whenever you fold a sheet. I'm going to put this like this. Like that. Let's bring it this way a little bit. Get some more room. You can always go in and set up the minis. You know, you're going to knock a few down, and that's fine. Just tell your players, stand him up a little bit, because they want to play. There we go. I'm just going to put that there. And then we'll cover the other two. Here's a massive sheet. I'm really going to fold this one up quite a bit, because this one could, looks like this one, they could kind of work around this one because of the hallways. So this one, we're really trying to cover here, that to there. Right? Loose. It can be billowy, and that's fine. You know, because you're gonna kind of pull it back. You'll kind of pull it back as you need to pull it back. Have them pull it back. So follow. If you watch me when we game, I kind of have them pull it back too. I can kind of show them with a laser pointer what to pull back, what not to pull back. And yeah, I'll have this one cover that hallway all the way over there. Then the last. So here's the trick. You can leave this here and really give them the big what? But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this off, because I don't want that room kind of giving them a hint that there is something big there, right? Don't want that hint until they walk into it. So I'm taking that off. And then I'm just going to kind of loosely put this sheet over this area here. In fact, I'm going to cover everything. So now the entire table is pretty much covered. So that's really super covered. And that's it. And so let's, once again, we can go look at the map and close this up. Alrighty, back around here and switch over so you can see me. Alright, so that's it. That's setting up Dig a Little Deeper. They're going to be running through it this weekend, and I will post this. You'll see this video shortly after, and if you're a player and you're watching, see if you found everything, see if you enjoyed it. I hope you guys do enjoy it. But thanks for sticking with me through another DM build. I hope you learned something. It's always a challenge. Don't sweat the small things. We'll see you next time on either the gaming or another DM setup or breakdown session. So thanks for being with us. Shadows of Dawn. Like and follow us. You can check out the YouTube page, check out the Facebook page. We just enjoy being with you guys, and I really appreciate everybody who watches and likes us. So thanks a lot. You guys have a good one. Happy gaming, and I hope something helped.